Would Curt Cignetti actually leave Indiana for Penn State? Well, we do know this, that the first phone call from the Nittany Lions is going to go to him.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover to talk Penn State and Indiana coaching moves potentially here, as Penn State's going to prioritize Curt Cignetti since they are now without a head coach. Welcome into this episode. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jacob Goins, your expert for all things Hoosiers, the host of Locked On Hoosiers, as we are talking about Penn State and Indiana. Who is the better job? Actually, I've seen that debate back and forth. We're going to settle it in this episode. What is the likelihood of all of this happening? If the Nittany Lions are prioritizing Cignetti, surely there's actually a better chance that this actually happens. But we're going to address the headlines, the rumors, all of it. Curt Cignetti to Penn State. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Jacob, let's get to the bottom of this. Of course, let us know your thoughts down in the comment section. Be a part of the conversation. Do you want Curt Cignetti if you're a Penn State fan? Indiana fans, how concerned are you with Cignetti leaving for Penn State? Because this should be Penn State's top coaching candidate. I've seen Matt Rule. I've seen Manny Diaz. In a perfect world, I personally like Mike Elko, but let's take all considerations, all logistics out of it. Curt Cignetti would objectively be the top candidate for Penn State without any of the other logistics attached.
Well, I think the thing we need to kind of remind ourselves here is Penn State's just the first big job that's opened up here recently. If it wasn't Penn State, it was going to be somebody else that Curt Cignetti's name would be thrown into the ring for. UCLA could be an option. I don't think that would be one, but it's a job, right? The Florida job could come open. The Auburn job could come open. What happens at North Carolina? I mean, there's so many different jobs that could open up or will open up by the end of the season. Penn State just happened to be right here in the middle of it. And it just so happened to be that Curt Cignetti got the biggest win of his coaching career and the biggest win of the Indiana's program career and history on the same weekend, within 12 hours of each other, that Indiana beat Oregon and Penn State cut loose from James Franklin. So it should be an honor for Indiana and for Indiana fans to have your head coach for football be thrown around in some of the biggest job openings in the country. But look, I've talked about this already on Locked On Hoosiers this week. The idea of Curt Cignetti leaving to go to Penn State, is there a world where it happens? Sure, I think so. But I don't think it makes the most sense all the way around, Seyko. I just don't.
Okay. For me, it does make a ton of sense from Penn State's perspective. Cignetti is a Pennsylvania guy. He's obviously a proven winner. He was taken, I know it was James Madison, but he was taking James Madison to FCS championships. And that's why Indiana took a chance on him. I'm surprised he has connections with Pitt. He's from Western Pennsylvania, but he coached for the Pitt Panthers. I thought they would kick Narduzzi out and try to promote. And I said, this is a slam dunk. Boot Narduzzi and go get Curt Cignetti. Well, that never happened. Who knows if they even had a conversation about it. And then I love the move for Indiana. So I'm going to love the move if Penn State is able to make it, but it's certainly not a guarantee. Even though Penn State is probably going to give him the first phone call, it's not guaranteed, because I am a little hesitant here. I will say this about Indiana. They rolled out the red carpet. They've treated him like royalty. Not an afterthought. They bought in immediately. Not only did they give him his break in the Power 4 ranks of being a head coach, they gave him everything he asked for. The reason Indiana football is where they are is because they aligned. They backed Curt Cignetti. And if you're Cignetti, why would you want to leave that for a place that's shown that, hey, you can have as much success, but if you don't do this, you still might get the boot at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, you've done your research, and it's absolutely true, because Indiana football has been so bad for so long, and you got somebody with a Nick Saban type of mentality. Curt Cignetti comes from the Saban coaching tree, and for those who remember when Saban was hired in Tuscaloosa at Alabama in 2007, he came in and said, hey, this is how I operate. This is how I'm going to do it. And if you want to be successful, you're going to listen to me and give me what I want. And we saw what that turned into. Curt Cignetti's doing the same type of things. I'm not comparing them and saying they're the same. I'm saying they operate the same and they have the same mental work ethic and the same ideas. And you've turned Indiana into one of the best football teams and one of the best football programs in the nation in just a year and a half. Curt Cignetti has 0 5 stars and just 7 4 stars on this year's Indiana roster, and they're a top 3 team in the nation. That's pretty remarkable. And it's because, like you said, Zach, the Indiana athletics department and the university backed him. You've got renovations to the weight room, renovations to the practice facility, money in NIL, boosters are flooding in, and Indiana football is pouring everything they have and can into Curt Cignetti, and it's paying off. That's sort of what I've talked about already this week is why would you walk away from that? Why would you leave a place that idolizes you, that's already talking about building you a statue outside the stadium? Like, you are in a place where you are so beloved already, you simply could do no wrong if you are Curt Cignetti. Going to a place like Penn State would be great. Probably could pay him a little bit more money. He's making over $8 million a year right now, but the spotlight is so much brighter at Penn State. And not that he's shying away or scared of that, but you've got a home in Bloomington and a place that will love you forever. I just don't know why you'd leave that.
Well, and that's a great start to the debate, because if people think that Penn State's a better job, there's some people that definitely say, oh, no, Indiana's better than Penn State. But, I think more people are going to say that Penn State is the better job. So what would it take to get Curt Cignetti away from Indiana to Happy Valley? Is it money? Is it resources? Because it sounds like, hey, commitment's not an issue. Okay, but Penn State, maybe they have more resources. And if it does happen, what would it mean for Indiana? What would it mean for Penn State? We're going to address all of that coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use some new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables, you name it. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and every budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. You will love how easy it is to find the pieces that will fit your style and fit your budget. Everything is in one place, and checkout, well, it's a breeze, and delivery is fast. It is free, which is a lifesaver during a busy time of the year. Am I right? And instead of stressing out about the house being ready, you can actually enjoy the holidays with friends and family. Get organized, get refreshed, and get ready for the holidays for way less with Wayfair. Head over to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That is right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, you can try player props, you can even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And lines are available for Penn State's upcoming game against Iowa on the road. The Hawkeyes are a 2.5-point favorite, minus 142 on the money line. Penn State, if you're thinking the Nittany Lions, are plus 118. The total is set at 39.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. And remember, new customers, if you bet $5, if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
We continue on with a Locked On crossover of Nittany Lions and Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers, talking probably the biggest story right now in the college football world. James Franklin is out at Penn State, and the top candidate seems to be Curt Cignetti from the Indiana Hoosiers. But people are asking, Zach, what are the possibilities of this happening? What are the odds of this happening? There are legit betting lines that you can hop on in certain places for Curt Cignetti to be the next head coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions. So I'm going to throw this to you from the Penn State perspective. You've already mentioned he's one of, if not the first phone call that Penn State makes. But what do you think the odds are that Penn State can make this happen and make Curt Cignetti the next head coach in Happy Valley?
Pretty fair, because Penn State's going to have to make Curt Cignetti say no. It's not just, we're going to be passive, right? Penn State they don't make this move lightly. They fired James Franklin and are willing to pay him around $50 million not to coach another game for them because they want to win national titles. Well, if Curt Cignetti can do this, and again, we're going to debate this in the upcoming segment, because in my belief, if Curt Cignetti can do this at Indiana, imagine what he can do at Penn State. So, I'm already starting to throw my jabs, but I think the odds are fair because Penn State is going to be persistent. They are going to call Curt Cignetti. We'll talk about what happens if this doesn't happen for the Nittany Lions, because I'm eager to see, I feel like the sky is falling if Indiana loses Curt Cignetti. With that being said, odds are good because I think Cignetti and Indiana have such a good relationship, but Penn State, hey, we'll bump up your salary. We'll give raises to your staff members. We'll give you more staff members. We'll get you more analysts. We'll get you whatever you need, because resources are not going to be a problem at Penn State. And that's what I've heard, despite the buyout, because I came from the frame of mind that, hey, Penn State's going to have to cut back on NIL and all this stuff, or they're going to have to be really conscious of how they spend money. It doesn't sound like it. So it is full force ahead. Go get the candidate that is at the top of your list, which is Curt Cignetti, and make him say no. So that means increased salary for not only him, staff members, the lifetime contract, so to speak. Cignetti would get the guarantees that, hey, if you want to be here for 5 years, if you want to be here for 10 years, you get the contract that you want. So that's what it's going to take from Penn State. And Cignetti's proven that, I wouldn't go for the end all be all, but he certainly deserves a lot of resources and a lot of help.
Yeah, and from the Indiana side of it and from the Cignetti side of it, you bring up salaries and resources and things, but I go back to the idea that at Indiana, they've given him all that, right? He's a top 20 paid coach in the country, making over $8 million a year. Bryant Haynes, your defensive coordinator, who proved last Saturday against Oregon, he's one of the best in the nation. He's making $2 million a year, which I know Jim Knowles making more than that. But then you have your offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, whose salary just went from $800K to over $1 million a year. So Indiana's paying some pretty competitive numbers in terms of the head coach and the coaching staff. It's just the idea that I just don't know if it makes sense for Cignetti to leave a place that he's already built in a year and a half. Why would you just dip out and say, well, this was fun, but I'm going to go somewhere else and see if I can do it? He just doesn't give off that vibe to me. He's somebody that has done it the right way. He's worked his way through the ranks. And now that he has his first big opportunity, I just think he's going to want to hang around and see what this thing can become. And I don't think he coaches for the next 10, 15, 20 years. He's in his mid 60s now, right? You're talking about somebody that isn't going to do it forever. This isn't a Dan Lanning or a Kenny Dillingham type of situation where you hire somebody for the next 25 years. I don't know why Cignetti would want to start over again. And for the Penn State side of it, I don't know why you would go hire somebody that isn't a temp hire, but it's not a 20, 25 year solution. Maybe they're just in win now mode. I don't know.
Well, I have an idea for that. Okay. Mike Shanahan seems like a good head coach in waiting. That would be the perfect transition if you keep, again, and because I've thought about this, why bring in a coach like Urban Meyer? Why bring in a coach like Ed Orgeron or try to convince Nick Saban? I think those are off the wall hires, unless that's a 2 to 3 year plan. And then you get, the understudy, the mentee to take over for that coach. Just get him to stabilize everything for 2 to 3 years, give him what you want, and then let that superstar, rising star, potential head coach, Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes, right? Both of them, I think, are future head coaches. So that's something that Indiana consider. It's something that everybody should consider, whether Cignetti stays at Indiana or moves on, because I think Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes would be optional, or they would be optional coaching candidates for Penn State if they want to move beyond Cignetti. Mike Shanahan in particular, because offense has just been such a struggle for the Nittany Lions. So now let's talk that through, right? If it does happen, if it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, for Indiana, if it does happen, yeah, it's devastating. I mean, it's
Awful.
just a shot through the heart.
Awful.
Everything that you've lived through the past year and a half, the greatest year and a half in the history of the program. It's been awesome, but it's just it's devastating, right? And I think Indiana has proven, again, with all the money and facilities and buy-in, you could go get another big-time head coach, and eventually you're going to have to do it. But man, you just don't want to lose somebody who's proven to be one of the best in the game. If it doesn't happen, then nothing changes. Even if you do pay the man a little bit more money, who just got a pay raise, fine. Do what you got to do. Keep him in Bloomington and don't let him get away.
Yeah, I say that either way, Curt Cignetti and his friends, the coaching staff, all benefit here. It will, whether it's a salary increase or more NIL or more guarantees or the statue. How could you give up the statue? Everybody benefits it when a job like Penn State opens. It's not only Cignetti. Mike Elko is going to get a raise. Somebody else is going to get a raise to try and prevent Penn State from and then it's the domino effect that this creates. If Penn State doesn't get Cignetti, and again, if you and I have to make a prediction right now in the middle of October 2025. I don't think it happens. And I don't think you think it happens either.
I don't either.
Indiana is very serious, and they haven't been passive like, oh, well, maybe if you prove it. They're like, no, we'll give you everything you need to help us out. Tom Allen crawled over broken glass so that Curt Cignetti could succeed at Indiana. So True. I personally don't think it happens, even though I think the likelihood is fair, because again, Penn State's going to make it so you have to say no if you're Cignetti. But with that being said, if it doesn't happen, I mean, Penn State's just going to move on down the list. Again, Mike Elko is going to get a call. Manny Diaz is going to get a call. If it's somebody like Mike Elko that you get Cignetti to say no, but you get Mike Elko to say yes, shockwaves all across college football, because then it means another big fish is eating a little fish. Texas A&M is going to go and get the coach. It's like, man, okay, we just got Penn State just poached our coach. We got to go get somebody just as good. Who knows better, right? Mike Elko is one of the top coaches in college football right now. Holy moly, we didn't think this was going to happen.
Right.
But it is going to send, and then Texas A&M is going to take somebody's staff, and then somebody else is going to take somebody else's staff, and it's just this trickle-down effect throughout college football. So that's what's going to happen one way or another, especially if Penn State gets a Curt Cignetti or a Mike Elko. It's not going to be as apparent if Manny Diaz happens to move on, but I would say the big fish of Matt Rule, Mike Elko, or Curt Cignetti will send absolute shockwaves and create this massive domino effect if that move was to actually happen.
Well, regardless, the Penn State job is open. Somebody's got to fill it, which will then open other jobs as well. But what if it is the Indiana job? Which job is bigger? Which one's better? Which one has more opportunities? A debate happening on the internet that we talk about next between Penn State and Indiana. Which one is the better job? We talk about that coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. It's just not cool and something that you don't want to have to deal with. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time and have done it every single weekend, and in just a couple of taps, you can see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And I've told you, I use Game Time for everything. I have no other apps, no other sites, nothing on my phone for sports, comedy, music, theater, you name it, they got it. Game Time is the place for you in this college football season. You need to be using the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKED. ONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
As we continue on this Locked On crossover, let's have the debate that a lot of people have been involved in online, and it's worthwhile. It is.
Yeah.
But I think it's a simple answer here, Jacob. You're going to disagree, and that's all right. Penn State's the better job. Penn State is absolutely the better job. The resources, the largest alumni network, active alumni network, to be able to fund and back a head coach. And look, I know it. Part of this is, well, they fired James Franklin. So what coach would want to take over if they're just going to get fired themselves? I don't look at it that way. James Franklin had every single opportunity to get Penn State close to a national championship, or at least not get bullied by Ohio State, and then it's Michigan, and then it's Oregon. So that's the issue here. Why did James Franklin get pushed out? Because Penn State sees itself as a perennial national title contender. They don't see themselves as second place to Ohio State, Penn State, the institution, Penn State, the administration. Other people do. People are shocked by the James Franklin firing because, well, to them, it's acceptable to lose to Oregon. It's acceptable to go on a losing streak and lose to Northwestern and UCLA because that's what Penn State is. Well, Penn State doesn't see it that way. Penn State sees itself as the better job than Indiana. I would probably, if you asked the Penn State administrators, they would say Indiana's not even close. The data backs it up. You look at the most recent report in terms of overall revenue, or The Athletic put this out, football program valuation projections, and Penn State is just outside of the top 10. They're number 11. Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Alabama, Oklahoma, USC, Tennessee, LSU, Penn State. Indiana's nowhere to be found on this list. So you want to talk about resources? It's not even close between Penn State and Indiana. Sorry.
Well, look, I am a homer, and I will admit that for Indiana. I love the Hoosiers. I love IU. I love everything about it. And I love talking about it every single day. But I'm not so much of a homer that I'm going to go out and say something that I don't believe. Penn State is the better job. And it has been historically up to this point. But there's a possibility here that could change if Indiana continues to do what they're doing under Curt Cignetti. If all those things that we've talked about today and that I've talked about for this last several years on Locked On Hoosiers, right? If the administration continues to buy into football, if the fans continue to buy into football, and whether it's NIL or revenue sharing or whatever it is next in college football that changes the landscape of things, if Indiana continues to handle it professionally and properly and getting out ahead of things like they've done, Indiana could become one of the most attractive jobs in the country. And you're telling me that if Curt Cignetti were to not be here anymore, whether he leaves, retires, or whatever the case may be, you're telling me there wouldn't be a massive group of people who wouldn't want to take the Indiana job right now, seeing the success he has had and said, I could do that. I could win at Indiana. They're giving him everything he wants. I could do that too. So I think Indiana is a fast growing job.
Yes.
But you can't look at it historically just because Indiana hasn't been good for the last forever, literally, but we'll say last 30 years. This is a new era in college football. This is a new place in the game where you can get good fast, and all it takes is a pretty dang good head coach to do it, and that's what Curt Cignetti is. But it has proven that Indiana can be one of the best programs in the country and one of the best jobs in the country. So historically, yeah, easily, it's Penn State that is the better job. But if the Hoosiers keep winning on the field and go on to do something special this year, it absolutely would be one of the most sought out jobs in the country.
Well, I think Curt Cignetti, because we can agree on a few things here. So I think it's apples to oranges when you say which job is better. Is it Penn State or Indiana? It should, objectively, it is Penn State, because if you look at that same list, Indiana is 38th. Okay. It's not like, oh, we can debate a few things and it's just a couple logistics where Penn State is, maybe it's slightly better, but Indiana actually, where it's like 10 versus 15, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
borderline Penn State, Michigan. Like this is like there's two pretty big. There's a gap there. There's a significant gap.
It's a massive gap, but kudos to Curt Cignetti for stabilizing, because when I'm like, man, 38th, I would have expected it to be higher, because I view Indiana as a much better job and a much better athletics program overall than this 38th ranking suggests. And it's going to change. This is a year by year thing where they will value each program and they'll value the football departments respectively. where I do view Indiana because of what Curt Cignetti has been able to do. Because before Tom Allen, there was hesitation, there was reservation, maybe because Tom Allen didn't fit in with the new age of Indiana. But I think someone like Curt Cignetti, who kind of came in with an iron fist, so to speak, I'm not saying he strong-armed Indiana, because James Franklin actually did the same thing. He was realistic with them. He's like, look, if you want us to succeed in this new era of college football, this is what I need. And I think he was clear. And Tom Allen probably didn't recognize all of that.
And Indiana wasn't willing to do it either, right? You're talking two completely different eras of Indiana football and Indiana athletics and college athletics too, to where Indiana back in the day said, okay, we'll put all this money in, but it's still not going to matter. Now it takes money and it's pay to compete. That's how I describe college athletics. Some people say it's pay to win. I'm not willing to go that far. This isn't a video game. This is college football. It's pay to compete. You spend the money, you throw out the dough, you're going to get good players, you're going to get good coaches, and be given every opportunity to compete. Take James Franklin at Penn State as a perfect example. He was given every opportunity to win, but he competed, but he didn't win. But he had everything to do it. College athletics is pay to compete, and Indiana has used a head coach in Curt Cignetti to now start winning, and that's why it's an attractive job moving forward in Bloomington.
Yeah, and I mean, here's why we're here, because Indiana is punching above its weight class. Yeah. Whether that's all Curt Cignetti or part of it is Indiana, part of it's Curt Cignetti, with a strong portion of it being Curt Cignetti. Okay. Because remember what it was before Cignetti and Tom Allen and before that. Okay. James Franklin and Penn State caught up, and then they started to punch below their weight class. They could only beat teams. Well, at least before that, they could only beat teams that they were 20-point favorites against. And the frustrating part was not being able to beat Ohio State, not being able to beat Michigan. But then Oregon comes into the Big Ten and uses you as a stepping stone to get to Ohio State. That's the issue. Yeah. The issue was right there. If you want to point to a specific example, well, James won all these games and Franklin did this and Franklin did that. Oregon was in the Big Ten for 1 year and matched the exact same amount of Big Ten titles as James Franklin did for a decade, and beat Penn State to get to that one-on-one title.
Yeah, you can't defend that if you're James Franklin. There's just you've lost all defense, and then turning around and losing to UCLA and Northwestern doesn't help you either. So
insult to injury.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So that's why Penn State made this move, because I think there's a sort of envy here that, hey, look at Indiana of all programs making a change and getting the right coach to fit with the culture, with the program. And in 1 year, I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen for Penn State, but that's obviously the expectation from the administration, that if Indiana can do it, if Oregon can do it, if Texas A&M can do it, by gosh, we should be able to do it too.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I know we got to wrap up, but I don't take any offense to that as an Indiana person. And I don't think Indiana should take any offense to that either. If there's any P4 program in college football that is questioning their leadership, questioning their future, right? Whether it be a coach or a buyout or the players or whatever the case may be, I take no offense to pointing like you just did and saying, if Indiana can do it, why can't we do it? I don't care if it's a team in the ACC, if it's a team in the SEC, Big 12. I don't care. Yep. You should be able to look at Indiana and say, if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And that says more about the era of the sport that we're in rather than Indiana itself. But what a blessing it is to have a coach like Curt Cignetti, and the fact that he is the top candidate for any opening in college football right now. It's an awesome time at Bloomington.
And that is where we will wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Hoosiers in this Locked On crossover. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host for all things Penn State related, as always. And he's got you covered for the Indiana Hoosiers. Jacob Goins. We're going to team up more times, especially as the rumors swirl, whether it's about Penn State and Curt Cignetti, Penn State finding a head coach. We talk Big Ten together weekly as well. Yep. So be on the lookout for that. But for all things Penn State and Indiana, subscribe to our respective YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for daily conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams and favorite Indiana teams.